Few philosophical wars have raged on for longer than the battle over free will. Do we have free will? Do we have a type of free will? Or is free will an illusion altogether? This is a pretty big topic, but for now let's go over the basics. At first glance, it may seem obvious that we have free will. After all, do we not make decisions on a daily basis? Do we not debate in hopes of convincing? Do we not punish those who use their free will for bad and reward those who use their free will for good? Isn't free will that thing that God gave us? Well, first, let's go over what we mean by free will. To do so, let's invoke a thought experiment. Let's say you're deciding on where to eat for lunch. Do you go to Taco Bell or do you go to McDonald's? You feel a craving for 2 crunchy tacos, 1 bean and cheese burrito with no onions, no sauce, and a Baja Blast. And so you decide to eat at Taco Bell. You order, you eat, and you go to the restroom. Now let's ask ourselves, could you have chosen McDonald's instead? You might be inclined to say yes, but let's take a step back. If you were literally in the exact same situation with everything else being equal, your craving is the same, your desires are the same, your location is the same, your brain chemistry is the same, the atoms that comprise your entire body are in the exact same positions, the entire history of the universe before you is the same, everything is exactly the same. Could you have picked McDonald's? According to data, most people believe you could. However, in the world of philosophy, most people argue otherwise. Free will isn't just the ability to make decisions. Cells, bacteria, robots, and AI all make decisions, but we wouldn't go so far as to say that they have free will. It's not like the robot was able to make a decision that wasn't in its programming. The debate regarding free will predominantly revolves around just how different we actually are from said robot. Most philosophers are determinists. Determinism answers the question with a resounding no. Determinism argues that everything is ultimately dictated by physics. We are all robots who are abiding by the laws of nature and following the path that is already set in stone. We cannot override our biology or the laws of physics any more than a robot can override its programming. Just because we can see our strings doesn't mean we are our own puppet masters. Many free will skeptics often use this as an argument as to why we do not have free will. Not all free will skeptics are skeptics because of deterministic physics, however. Some focus on factors that are based on luck, such as your genetics or your environment. While most philosophers adopt the worldview of determinism, not all find this reason enough to believe in free will. Philosophers known as compatibilists believe that the reality of determinism can be compatible with a version of free will. They agree that everything is ultimately physics, though some don't go as hardcore on the physics determinism because of quantum mechanics, but they believe that we can have a working, consistent definition of free will that doesn't require breaking the laws of nature. Daniel Dennett, the late esteemed philosopher in the field, has argued that there are varieties of free will worth wanting. We don't need to live in an indeterministic world to define free will. After all, we do deliberate, think, make decisions, and argue. It's not like you can say something like, why do anything if free will doesn't exist? It's not like I can change the outcome. But you still have to actually do things and make decisions to get to the outcome. And many think this is reason enough to construct a working definition of free will that allows for human agency to exist. The physicist Sean Carroll is also someone who adopts the worldview of determinism, but does believe in a type of free will. He argues that we have different layers of description for everything in life. We don't understand or describe baseball based on the particles residing within the bat, ball, or player. You don't look at the standard model of particle physics and expect to see the rules of baseball there, even though it obviously technically is. Similarly, free will is on a different layer of description as we generally understand it. We can simultaneously recognize that we don't have free will in the conventional sense, while also preserving a useful and largely true, on a meta level, conception of free will. You may now be asking, what about the people who don't jive with determinism? What about the philosophers that answer yes to the could you have done otherwise question? Well, these people are often regarded as libertarians, not to be confused with the political philosophy. In order to justify their belief in free will, they often invoke a soul or rely on the mystery of consciousness to do so. While there are libertarian philosophers out there, they are few and far in between, and the debate about free will among professional philosophers is almost exclusively between the free will skeptics and the compatibilists. While there are more compatibilists than self-labeled determinists, Both parties agree that determinism is true, but they just disagree on the layer of description. There's a lot more to the free will debate than these three positions, obviously, especially when including normative thought, such as whether a working definition of free will must include something like moral culpability, and I do plan on going more in depth regarding this topic, but as a preamble for that conversation, these are generally the positions taken when discussing free will.